Hey peeps, I know right now there's a discourse happening between us Mexicans and Americans that are mostly of European descent want to believe that this land was actually conquered but not stolen. And I want to tell you, they are wrong to say to you that it is conquered when it's not. Actually, a lot of Mexicans, like myself, who are descendants of actual Mexicans that used to live in Mexico and now reside here, because I am Mexican American per being Chicana, as we're called in this country. And by the way, I have to tell you something you're not going to believe, but this is the truth. In Mexico, a lot of Mexicans, when they're kids or whatever time during their life, they learn this from their families, they learn this from school, like my mom did. And you know what happened to some of these people? Some of them were told about the history of what really happened in the Treaty of Guadalupe de Hidalgo / the Alamo. And what they didn't tell you was this, guys. Number one, you didn't know this, but this stolen history is actually true. There's a few things that make me believe it's actually factual. And you might ask, well, what's your proof? Remember we used to have a lake in the state of California that was dead and it's been gone for decades, and it was called Lake Corcoran? Well, for Mexico to have such a place to be called part of Mexico years ago, hundreds of years ago, it would make sense that they would be right about that, because when they dredged the lake after having to take it over after stealing it, they took what was once part of Mexico too, which was also the lake. They dredged to make what today's agriculture of California is. Oh, and another thing, when they also talk about this history about why it used to be part of Mexico, it was because, imagine this, let me just tell you this for you people in layman terms. What happens, you just recently bought a house, and for some reason some squatters, aka the robbers and thieves, break in all of a sudden, forcing you at gunpoint to sign the deed to your own home to them. And they claim they'll spare your life and not hurt any of you or whatever, but they say they also will pay it too, which will they insist on and pretend to pay. Pretend pay, let's just keep that real. And what happens was, this is what I really believe what actually happened was this. What some people are now speculating, some of us Mexican Americans that are talking about right now, and some of TikTok and other videos and whatnot, we already came to the conclusion that this was actual coercion. So you were right with the C word, but you spelled and said coercion wrong, which is actually what really happened prior to the person who signed it off, most likely, and I would believe, did get killed in result of this. And I also have to believe it because think about it, why would Mexican kids, now that they're adults and now live on this side of the border, still believe it's stolen? Because history will tell you that it actually probably most likely did happen. And what happened was, more than likely, and like I said, let's go back to the analogy of what the house is. Let's just say you did buy that house in your first ever home, and those thieves, robbers / squatters forced a gun to your head and said, you're gonna sign this over and we'll pretend to not kill you and pretend not to take it away, and we'll pretend to pay you for that same house because they were somebody who wanted it for themselves for some reason. But really, when they said all that stuff, then you foolishly thinking that, okay, if I just sign this over, then I will be safe, right? They won't kill me, right? And wrong, you sign it, they kill you, they pocket the money, but they have your signature of you signing over the deed to them, the squatter / thief / robber, who just wanted to keep your house anyways in the first place, but never intended to pay you and never intended to want to actually leave you alive. And they wanted to pocket that money for themselves. And that's where we're at today with the Mexican, debate about what happened back then over hundreds of years ago. That's really what happened, guys. That's more likely happened because, I mean, if you keep hearing Native people complain about treaties being broken, well, that was intentional because they wanted to break those too. They never wanted to keep promises here in this country. This country, unfortunately, as an American of this nation as well, I can't really say with great, confidence that this is a really good place because they were not made with good merit to begin with. That's what they were good at. They were good at forcing people by forcing their hands, and then they take some of these people's lives away. And that's why I had to bring this analogy for you to understand this better, is that that's most likely what really did happen back then. And this is why I believe my mom and many Mexican people who are now grown-ups today, when they were kids or growing up in their own country of Mexico, they listened and believed this story because it was probably passed down by the people at the epicenter at that time, and they were telling their kids at the epicenter since then, and oral tradition later, this is how it come to our knowledge as stolen as you hear it today. So I do believe it, yes, because California used to have a lake, and it was called Lake Corcoran, right? And that place was dredged dry. It doesn't have a lake anymore, unless you want to count Lake Tulare. I've never been there though, but that's over there by Kern County, up there by up in San Jose County, in that area, Sacramento County, all that stuff up north over there. But that's what I'm talking about. It used to be big during the time of the rainy season and winter time, and probably during whatever time. And then they had that fear, remember years ago, about the arc storm. Yeah, and that's where the arc storm could have landed, and what would have made that dead ancient lake of Lake Corcoran. I actually believe, this is just my belief though, my genuine educated hypothesis about this, that was probably the proof you need right there to know Mexico did own this land. And without that lake still today, you might say, well, they're making it up. Why else would they want to take the expansion? The expansion to take the whole state itself that used to once be a whole ass lake, you have to kind of think of it like that. It would make sense. And also, this is based off their so-called manifest dumb destiny. Yes, I said it's a dumb destiny because it was dumb that they manifested it. And that's why. And the truth is, peeps, now that you know this, I have to tell you, the listener, the viewer of this 10-minute long rant on TikTok here, if not anywhere else I decide to post this on later, probably on YouTube, because that's the next stop I'm going to do. I'm just letting you guys know, this isn't misinformation, this is just common knowledge. And this is just me, educating on this, not really speculating, but this is just my hypothesis on this, and belief, educated belief that this might have been the truth the whole time. And so, no, it was not conquered, it was coursed. You spelled it wrong, and you said it wrong, and you know it's wrong, because we live in a history of a land that was taken even before I was born here, and you and I were both born here too. And even the Native Americans on this side of the border can attest that their land was stolen, and they keep saying, one thing you keep hearing as a dead ringer, land back, land back. I wonder why they keep saying that. And now, you don't have to wonder about it too anymore, like me. Yep, people, I know. There are things I didn't think, I just had to put two and two together, and I realized they would be right. It would be theirs. But at the time, during that time, after New Spain got expelled, aka Nueva España, and then during that time, during the 1800s, when they got Mexico back, and that's where all the trouble actually began, when they were just trying to make economics, as I keep hearing from other people who talk about historian stuff and what forth and too. And that's where the trouble began, the succession, I guess, of Texas per se, because of the whole, they wanted to bring slaves, and that's illegal in Mexico, and it still is today, by the way. So, just like guns, like my mom said, are also illegal in her country, makes you wonder too, why? Makes me wonder. It made us all wonder. And for all these wonders that I have to wonder, I have to even ponder about this even more. And I hope you do too. I hope you can take this not as a, hey, well, they're wrong. They don't understand what conquered means. Actually, we understand exactly what that means. I don't think you understand it when you say it. Online in your comments or on other people's video or whatever. I just think you're just not understanding for what it is. And like I said, I come from a culture, which is Mexican, by the way, and people like my mom, they were raised and they were taught to believe this themselves. So, like I said, be as it may, you know what? The truth is what it is. And sometimes it can be ugly, but also very scary to know the origin of why it happened. And also, thanks for coming over to my account. Another rosy talk, if you will. This is Rosie Says, and I'll see you on the next post.